Welcome to Ask Caleffi, the podcast that dives into real-life problems that plumbing and HVAC technicians face in the field. We're your hosts from the Caleffi Tech Support Team. I'm Greg Tubbs.
And I'm Dan Furcus. Welcome. We look forward to sharing some stories from our tech calls and using our background and expertise to make your days a little easier.
Hey there, welcome back to the Ask Caleffi podcast. Greg Tubbs coming at you from beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How we doing, Dan?
I'm doing great today, Greg. Doing great. I'm excited because we have a great guest today.
We do have a great guest today. We have Mark Eatherton.
Yeah, Mark has been, we've been lucky enough to have Mark help us with, believe 3 Coffee with Caleffis now. He's got a ton of knowledge on troubleshooting domestic recirc systems. And I think at one point he did shared a live example of a system that he helped service and correct. Yeah. So welcome, Mark.
Well, greetings from Denver, Colorado. How are you guys?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Cool.
How's the weather out there?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in climate change because there's never been a time when climate has held still. But this winter has been extremely dry and warm, so it's conducive to me doing construction work, which is fine. Winter will come back.
Right. Yep. Right. Certainly will. So today we're going to talk about domestic hot water recirc systems, in particular troubleshooting trouble systems.
Yeah, that's a wonderful program that I have been involved with quite heavily, and it was not really by choice. We do a lot of commercial boiler retrofits for an organization here in Colorado called Energy Outreach Colorado, who is responsible for distributing Department of Energy funds for upgrades in subsidized housing. And when we're done going in and retrofitting boilers and providing them with new domestic hot water generators, we inherit whatever problems were in that building to begin with. And most of these buildings are fraught with problems. And it's been that way from day one. So management just basically has a tendency to blow it off and discount it to disgruntled residents. And in reality, there are real issues in the field. And once we get involved, they realize that we have solutions. So they ask us to come in and do evaluations on the system. And fortunately, we have had access to the wonderful Caleffi Series 116 thermal setters that have changed our world and their world, and has resulted in complaints going away, energy bills going down, water and sewage bills going down, and a whole lot of happy people.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of a common theme whenever you're talking plumbing or heating, is to be able to listen to the customer or the residents of the facility as to what's going on. You know, it was always a big thing to be able to help narrow down an issue and troubleshoot it.
Yeah, you mentioned going in and doing a retrofit and how you inherit the problems of that building, and boy, isn't that the truth. Greg and I both coming out of the contractor side, we know that very extensively. Once you touch it, it's yours.
You own it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Greg's right. Being able to get in, are you able to get in and talk to the tenants, or do you just working with the building owner?
We're different. Most contractors don't do what we do. We do our due diligence. We want to know what kind of problems we're inheriting in the first place. And so when we go in to do our surveys, we have to go in and, as an example, we do a baseboard survey. And then we do that cross comparison to see how many BTUs per square foot per hour we're going to deliver to the building to make sure that that's within a reasonable value. And if it's not, we question it and start asking questions of the residents about comfort. Is it comfortable in here? Well, yeah, it's okay until it gets cold outside, and then you don't want to get anywhere near the outside windows. Okay, well, is it infiltration or is it lack of baseboard? So we'll do our due diligence and do the load calculations. But as a part of our survey, we ask them about hot water. So how's your domestic hot water? Well, it's okay at times, or good God, I haven't had hot water in this apartment since I've lived here, and management has told me that's the way it's always been, so it's normal. So, yeah, we do ask questions, and we don't discount what management says, because management is in a position where if it's proven that they have a problem within their building that they didn't address, they can get trouble from HUD and from ownership and different things. So they usually mask those problems. They'll say, yeah, that woman always complains. Well, maybe it's a legitimate complaint. Maybe it's not.
Right.
And in some cases, it's not. I mean, you've got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. I was on an apartment complex, one of the first ones that we applied the Caleffi products in, that the maintenance manager said, I'm going to have to let you go in there because she's got a restraining order against me. And I said, do I need to tie a rope around my waist in case I need to be retrieved? And he said, no, he said, she might kill you, but she won't eat you.
Oh, wow. That's always fun. Oh, yeah. It's always fun. It's always fun.
So you have to take it into consideration. I mean, is this person being reasonable? And you ask open-ended questions and let them answer. And if all the answers keep coming back into the same kind of point of direction, then there's obviously a problem there. And it's education as a part to the management people too, because they've got a person that's answering the phone at the front desk that receives nothing but flack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she's not going to pay a whole lot of attention to what it is that they're complaining about. They're just complaining. And she's going to turn it over to maintenance, and maintenance is going to go up and wave a magic wand or do whatever they have to try to satisfy the tenant. And in reality, they could be helping maintenance by saying, what unit are you in? When does this problem occur? Is it always constant, or does it only occur between 6 and 8 a.m. or between 4 and 5 p.m.? And you at least get the ability to be able to establish a pattern of complaints. And where is this complaint coming from? Is there a whole stack of apartments that are making the same complaint, or is it random throughout, or is it only the top floor? And it basically helps us do our troubleshooting and avoids us having to go in and knock on people's doors and try to simulate conditions under non-load conditions, which, that's the scenario is you're going to be showing up there and you're going to be looking for a problem that only occurs during a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. So when you're standing there at 10 o'clock in the morning, you got plenty of hot water. It's not an issue. But if you were there between 6 and 8 a.m. during peak loading, then you may see a completely different scenario. So it helps to ask questions. You've got to go in with an open mind, bright flashlight, and basically see what you can see. And a lot of the stuff is invisible. How was the system piped? Was it piped parallel reverse return, parallel direct return? Is it pyramidic return? Is the return on the top floor? Is the return on the bottom floor? There's a whole lot of variables, and nobody, to my knowledge, has X-ray vision. And infrared comes pretty close to that, but still, you don't know when you're looking at a hot spot behind a wall. Is that a supply pipe or a return pipe? So it requires a little bit of investigation in the field to get yourself familiarized. Always try to find some blueprints first. And there's no guarantee that the blueprints that you get are as-built. So the contractor may not have installed what was designed in the first place, but that's a contractor's job to go in and look at the system, see how it's set up, see how it's laid out. Start asking questions, getting answers, and determining what the nature of these complaints are.
That's a very important step up front with any project, especially if you're a contractor going in to take over a project or to take on a building or quote a replacement project. I mean, it's easy to go in there and look at what they have and quote like for like, but boy, to take that step up front and do your due diligence to talk to the tenants and kind of learn how that building's performing before you get into it. I mean, that's a really critical first step.
It is. And it's a matter of being complete in your job. And, we get done with our survey and we start talking to the folks at EEOC. Then we say, you know what, there's other problems within this building that you're not addressing. And here is what they are.
They may not have even discovered them. They may not even discovered them yet or be aware that they're there.
Yeah, they're being masked by management. Management doesn't want to admit that they have any kind of issues.
Well, it's going to cost them money.
To think that that it's perfect. And that's the funny thing is that it's not costing them any money. This is money that's coming from the federal government to help these subsidized properties increase their efficiency. But they still don't want to admit that they have an imperfect world. Mm-hmm. So they're always, there's no problems in this building. And then when you go talk to the residents, they're like, oh, God, yeah, there's all kinds of problems in this building.
Right.
And if you ask maintenance is more likely to give you a true answer because they really don't care. They just want to get these problems solved so that their phone quits ringing.
Right. They're the ones that have to take that tenant call. So they want to get the problem solved. They're more apt to probably share the issues with you where ownership may not necessarily always want to hear that.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say to do that up front so that when you are done with the replacement, you're not dealing with the issues on the backside And because then they can be presumed from ownership that you created this.
Sure. Yeah. And, as we mentioned, you touched it last, you own it. And we don't want our phone to ring either. So
Right.
we want to make sure that we do as much due diligence as we possibly can. And it's amazing what we're seeing in the field as it pertains to these domestic hot water supply and circulation return systems. I was called out on an emergency active leak in the mechanical room this week on a job that we had just done a total retrofit of, and got in there and saw that it was the circulation return, and it had pinholed a couple of inches after a fitting. And I asked the maintenance man, I said, do you have pinhole leaks springing up in your building? And he said, everywhere.
Wow.
And he said, only on the smaller lines. And I said, only on the domestic hot water. He said, correct. And I said, that's hydraulic erosion, corrosion. And I said, the best example of hydraulic erosion, corrosion is the Grand Canyon. And I said, you do not want the Grand Canyon in your piping distribution system.
No way.
He goes, you got a solution? And I said, absolutely, we do. And he said, give me the solution. I will go to management. I will get the money. We'll get it taken care of in 2022.
Perfect.
And, these maintenance men, and as I took this fitting and the pipe out and I handed it to him, I said, they don't make them like they used to. And he laughed and he goes, that's what my plumber said. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, they actually make them better than they used to.
Yeah.
So this is an issue of hydraulic erosion. It's, a pump running constantly. Hot water has a tendency to be erosive anyway because that's its job.
Right.
And basically you start spinning little pinhole leaks a couple of inches after elbows. Then we know it's hydraulic erosion. We cut the pipe apart. We split it in half. You see a V-shaped track. And you remember that horses always walk upstream, so you know what direction the water was flowing through there. The other thing that we're seeing is flux corrosion. The old non-water soluble fluxes that were petroleum-based are starting to raise their ugly head in that they're causing some holes in some of the copper tubing. It's just an issue that you have to address. It's been addressed in that we are using water-soluble fluxes now that theoretically wash out and won't stay there forever to eat the pipe. But it's the nature of the beast. A lot of older systems out there that are in dire need of help. They were not piped in a manner that is conducive to flow. I think I've seen one system that was actually piped parallel reverse return that didn't require any balancing at all, and it was still running at excess velocity. But most of them are piped parallel direct return. As we all know, water is like my ex-brother-in-law, wet, lazy, and stupid. That's why he's my ex-brother-in-law.
Right.
and you basically have to tell it what you want it to do and when you want it to do it.
Sure.
So by putting these thermal balancing valves in here, then you basically straighten the system out completely. It eliminates excess flow rates and erosion. It won't reverse the damage that's already been done, but it will stop any more damage going forward, and gets rid of all those complaints of people complaining. But the nature of the beast is such that it's you've got to look at it as a package as a whole. And most plumbers know what they need to know. They just don't know how to apply it.
Sure.
And hydraulics in a domestic hot water circulation return are just exactly like the hydraulics in a closed loop heating system, but they don't look at it that way. So the first thing that happens when somebody complains about a problem is they put in a bigger pump.
Right.
Well, if a little pump did a little good, a lot of pump will do a lot of good.
Oh, yeah.
More cowbell.
And it compounds. It compounds the erosion problem. You start bringing more leaks on more of the returns.
Right.
And the complaints subsided a little bit, but it's still an issue. So you've got to look at the system as a whole. You've got to record the nature of the complaint. And the complaints that you hear in the field are going to vary all over the place. And you've got to stop and think about what it is that they're saying, when it occurred, where it occurred, and were there any similar occurrences within that same particular riser stack. And if there is, and you start at the top and start working your way down until you get to the floor that doesn't have the problem, and believe it or not, you've discovered the problem. That's where the problem is. You've got a cross-connected shower valve. There's certain types of cartridge shower valves that will cross-connect between the hot and the cold water line. So as people are trying to draw hot water upstream or above that particular cross-connection, the cold cross-connects into the hot and dilutes the hot water that's going up into that riser. So you could have 130 degree Fahrenheit water on the first floor, and when you get to the second floor, you still got 130 degrees, but when you get to the third floor, you can't get more than 90. That's because it's mixing on the second floor.
Right.
And once you determine how to look at this stuff and how to test for it, then you can eliminate it. And there's probably 2 or 3 different types of cartridge valves that are on the market that have an issue. Moen is one, and Moen has admitted to it openly. They were giving away cartridges for a long time trying to take care of this issue.
Okay.
I can't remember the names of the other ones, but they're older. Most of the new systems that are installed have check valves on both the cold and hot supply going into the valves, so it eliminates any possibility of cross connection. Cross connection could still occur, but it's not going to allow any backflow or cross feeding from cold into the hot water mains themselves. So the problem has pretty well been negated in any newer systems. But in some of the older systems, you'll have a cross-connected valve, and you find this by recording where it is that people are complaining, and then look at the map of the property and go, oh, yeah, these are all in the same riser. So you know that problem's coming from down below. But you may get people on the top floor that are spread out horizontally through the whole thing that are complaining of never being able to get any hot water. And the engineering department or the maintenance people are like, well, let's turn it up. So they turn the water supply temperature up trying to compensate for this, when in reality, there's a failed check valve on the circulation return, which is allowing cold water to run backwards through that circulation return. And at the top floor, they're mixing hot and cold water in an effort to try to give them a constant common temperature. Relating to the nature of the complaint and where the complaint's coming from is going to give you some guidance on where you need to look. And that's one of the very first things that I check. When I go into a mechanic room, I like to be there during design conditions so that I can use my hands and my eyes and my ears to listen to the system and feel and see what's going on. And the first thing I will do is grab the circulation return. And if the circulation return is ice cold, I know I've got cold water charging backwards through that circ return and going to the top floor. And at the top floor, they've got hot and cold water coming from 2 different positions. And it will also result in a water shower temperature that's like a roller coaster ride. Starts out hot, goes cold, goes hot, goes cold. And the poor consumer is standing there the whole time making adjustments to their shower valve. Well, that one's a dead giveaway. That's a circulation return that's back charging. And people will say, well, but the pump is running. It shouldn't be able to do that. Well, yeah, it shouldn't, but it is.
We've actually
pump's only capable.
We've actually gotten calls similar to that where they think it's the mixing valve that's doing that. So, we go through everything, checking, making sure they have the right temperature coming into it. Is it leaving at the temperature, it's supposed to be set to? If you've got a huge building,
minimum flow requirements.
Are you meeting minimum flow requirements? That's another one that causes a roller coaster ride like that. But a failed check valve, that's another indicator that, that's the problem.
And this is where some of the tools that I use come in very handy. I mean, an infrared camera is invaluable in my position. However, you have to also understand that you need to understand what you're looking at. If you're looking at a shiny copper pipe with an infrared camera and you're using the little crosshairs in the middle to see what the temperature is, it's going to give you a falsely low reading. So if you put a piece of blue tape, just painter's tape, onto that pipe, and then put your crosshairs on that, then you'll see a true surface temperature, because it's the emissivity of that pipe that's affecting what the infrared camera reads. But one thing that I use that is very handy is a data logger. And I've got data loggers that vary between, I think I've got 4 station and up to a 16 station unit that I could use, that I could basically strap these sensors all over the system and let it run. Let it go through its normal daily cycle, and then pull it up on the computer and take a look at it and see what goes on with the trends. So if the supply hot water temperature coming from the tempering valve is a constant, it's not a mixing valve issue. And when I'm looking at the circulation return, if the temperature is going up and down, and those downs correlate to a peak load period, then I know I've got water charging backwards the circulation return going to the point of use. So a data logger is an invaluable tool, and it's something that once the consumer looks at the spreadsheet that you set up and turns it out, they go, oh, wow, holy cow, I had no idea that was occurring. The same thing with the infrared camera. When we use the infrared camera, we'll go into a radiant floor heating project that was not insulated from below, that the consumer is complaining about a problem with the space heating system not working correctly on the main floor and causing overheating in the basement. And when you show them the floor joist bays that are glowing like hot rods, they go, oh,
Right.
well, my contractor told me heat rises. Okay, well, tell your contractor to go back and fire his fifth grade teacher who told him that heat rises, because radiant energy travels omnidirectionally, including downward through the path of least resistance.
Yep.
You need insulation. If you put insulation in there, your basement will cool down and your main floor will heat up like you want it to. So these are tools that when you show them to the consumer, they go, well, I had no idea that there was even the ability to be able to see this. And yes, I can see it. And yeah, you're right, there is a problem. We do need to address it. So it lessens the chances of them blowing you off, going, yeah, you're just trying to get into my pocket and waste my money.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, it builds credibility with the customer. I mean, it shows that you're doing your due diligence and gathering your information and the solutions you provide. It gives you something to go back on later to show definite improvement in their system performance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Building credibility with the customer is a big deal. It's going to ensure that
It is.
You're going to come back there and have their repeat business. Hopefully you don't have to come back there too often, but they're going to tell a lot of other people about you that you do good work, and maybe you come at a cost, but good work does come at a cost, just like good products do.
It comes back to pay you in spades.
Yeah.
As an example, our first problem case down in Denver that we had to deal with, the health department was involved. And I mean, they were standing there breathing down our necks going, this has got to be fixed today, or we're going to shut this building down and you're going to have to walk all the residents to a hotel.
Wow.
That'll get management's attention in a hurry.
Yes.
And so we got involved with them and we said, okay, let me drag you through the system and show you what's going on here. They said, it's not a source of supply issue. It's a distribution issue, and it's not easy to fix, but we will address it. So drag them through and show them what was going on. At the end of this little tour, he says, would you guys be interested in teaching our inspectors? Well, heck yes.
Absolutely.
Send them down. So we brought them into our classroom here. We trained them. We showed them what hot water heating systems consist of: supply, distribution, return, mixing, all that stuff. And said, you guys can't fix it, but you need to understand that these are the issues that these people are dealing with. And resulted in a whole bunch more work from the city of Denver. Anytime their health inspectors get into a problem, they send them to us.
Yeah, you're their go-to guy, and that's fantastic.
So that works great, plus also the consumer. We've got two different commercial customers that are nationwide. They manage properties coast to coast, border to border, and they have problems. And guess who they call to get those problems solved? I mean, they're willing to pay us an exorbitant amount of money per hour to go up and take a look at it. They'll pay our expenses, etc. And we go in and look at the system as a whole, figure out what the problems are, make recommendations, meet with their plumbing contractors, tell them what they need to do, explain it to them, make sure that everybody understands what's going on. And they apply the fix and the problems go away. We have a happy customer and happy consumers.
Your technicians in the field, I'm sure, really appreciate the amount of upfront work that you do in investigating the projects before you're sending them in. They do. I can imagine being, being one of your service techs and going into a problem job and, being looked at like, it's a problem you created because not enough due diligence and preparation went in on the front end to make the corrections so that your project is successful.
Yeah, they stop you and they go, nobody else has ever asked me these questions before. Well, number one, they probably didn't know that they were supposed to be asking that questions because they're looking for a quote unquote problem.
Right.
Sure. And, their quick, easy fixes, well, let's put in a bigger pump. That's not always the solution.
No.
Seems to always be their first attempt, but not always the solution.
First attempt and the first thing to cause a problem down the road with erosion corrosion.
Sure, that's what they know how to do.
Yeah.
That's the easy fix in their eyes as well. Let's put a bigger pump on there and see what happens. And that's the problem, is they can't quote unquote see what's happening.
Sure. Right.
And, the complaints may subside a little bit, but the problems are still there. And the only way to address it correctly is to go through and thoroughly balance the system out, eliminate any cross connections, eliminate any backflow occurring within the system, and basically set it up so that it's going to work like it's supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's a lot of systems that aren't balanced at all, or definitely not balanced properly. But I also believe there's probably a lot of cross connections out there that aren't discovered.
Well, there is, and some of them were inadvertently set up. I had a call this last week from one of our manufacturer reps, and he says they've got a prison that they are unable to get hot water to their showers. He said all the showers in one place, and he said, but I think I may have discovered what it is because he had attended one of the Caleffi seminars that I had spoken at.
Okay.
And he said they've got all of these mop sinks that have a chemical mixing station on them.
There it is.
Where the hot and the cold water come together to a common point,
Yep.
mixed down, goes through, picks up soap, goes into the bucket. And I said, are there check valves on the cold and hot water supply? And he said, I don't think so. And I said, you just discovered your cross connection. Mm-hmm. I said, have them close at least the hot or the cold water valve on every one of those valves and see if hot water is restored at the showers. And I have not heard from him. So my assumption is, yep, that's where it was. And that took care of it, because if it hadn't, he'd have been calling me back going, well, no, that didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the next thing? Out there.
Yeah.
Well, we had an interesting tech call come in from a local project to us here in Wisconsin, and it was a hotel, and they have one of our Legio Mix electronic mixing valves on site, and it's been working perfectly. They've had no hot water complaints or issues, and suddenly the contractor got a call of no hot water or low temperature hot water, and then the next day he got a call again, and they were determining what we were able to do because our Legio Mix has data logging.
Yeah.
It stores the temperature histories. We're able to walk him through that. And what we determined is it was occurring at 6 p.m. and it would occur for 2 hours, a 2-hour spread around 6 p.m. every day. And they determined that's when the maintenance crews were in there or the cleaning crews were in there, and they were able to find a cross connection because of that. But the data logging feature in our Legio Mix electronic mixing valve helped discover that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's where data loggers are indispensable. I mean, you can't be there every minute of every day, but if you leave a data logger there that takes a snapshot every minute, then you get a really good idea of what's going on, what the trends are. And then, as you said, listen, talk. What happens at 6 o'clock? Oh, the floor maintenance crews go in and start working in the hallways. Aha.
Yep. And that's what they did.
Related to that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But yeah, it's, there's not too much information that you can gather. And the more information you have, the more accurate you're going to be in going and making recommendations. I mean, we don't only recommend the use of the Series 116, we also use the quick flow setters. Mm-hmm. If you've got a split in the branch of the hot water supply main, then you're going to have a split in the branches coming back. Then you want to make sure that you keep the water velocity within that pipe below an erosive velocity. And the only way that you can do that is to see literally what the gallons per minute movement is.
Sure.
Well, that's going to do it for the first part of this episode. Join us again February 8th, where we continue talking with Mark Eatherton and discuss more on issues with domestic hot water recirc systems. Thank you for tuning in. If you ever need help,
please feel free to contact our tech support team anytime at techsupport.us@caleffi.com.
or call us during our business hours at 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Central Time at 414-238-2360.